Good morning, everyone. My name is Arpan Banerjee. I'm a doctoral fellow at the Department of East Asian Studies, University of Delhi, and academic counselor here at IGNOU. And I welcome you all to today's learning session. I have been teaching you this paper, the code of which is BPA 143, and the name of this paper is Administrative System in BRICS. So let us begin today's class. So far in this paper, we have done constitutional framework and structure of government in BRICS. That we have done. As part of that, we had not only discussed the constitutional framework of the BRICS countries, but we have also discussed the legislative, executive, and judicial framework as well in the BRICS countries. Moving on, in the second block of this paper, which was pertaining to bureaucracy and control mechanism over administration in the BRICS countries. We had discussed the role of bureaucracy in policy making, implementation, and analysis in the BRICS countries. And also, we had discussed the control mechanism over administration in BRICS countries. In the third block, which was pertaining to personnel management, in the last class we had discussed the recruitment and promotion in the civil services in the BRICS countries, and in today's class we shall be discussing the 8th unit, that is pertaining to the training of civil servants in the BRICS countries. So let us begin today's class by discussing the 8th unit, that is pertaining to the training of civil servants in BRICS countries. So the first country that we are going to discuss, that is Brazil. So in this 8th unit of ours, which is pertaining to the training of civil servants, personnel management, and as part of personnel management, we are going to discuss the training of civil servants. So in Brazil, if we see, newly recruited civil servants, they are initially trained by the schools of the government, and for activities of continuous development, postgraduate training and research, professional training focusing on skill and knowledge development, and also for the dissemination of knowledge about public management. So regarding all these things in Brazil, we see that newly recruited civil servants, they are trained by the schools of the government. So if you talk about the training of civil servants in Brazil, within the federal government of Brazil, the practice of incorporating compulsory training course that began in the diplomatic area many decades ago, but it has since expanded to most of the careers which are considered typical of the state. What are those careers? They are government managers, audit and legal policy areas. So in Brazil, although it does not follow a rigid configuration, training, it plays a central role in the formation, recognition, and identity of the civil servants as part of a state bureaucracy. So the demand for qualification in the Brazilian public service, intensified after the process of re-democratization in the 1980s. So it was only in 1998 that the government schools, they were formally included in the Brazilian federal constitution, and amendment 19 of the Brazilian federal constitution of 1998, it established that the federal and state governments, they must maintain schools of government for the education and improvement of their personnel. And at the national level, the mission and vision of the government schools of training is to guarantee permanent training of the civil servants at all the levels of federal government and in all government branches, that is legislative, executive, and judiciary. So if we see, since 2003, the national network of government schools that has been set up, and it is coordinated by the Brazilian National School of Public Administration, or the Escola Nacional de Administração Pública. It is also called the ENAP. So this ENAP, or the Brazilian National School of Public Administration, It coordinates the national network of government schools. Since 2003, it has been doing that. So the Brazilian National School of Public Administration, it was set up in 1986, and the mission was to develop the skills of civil servants to increase the capacity of governance in managing public policies. With the participation of about 200 institutions, this Brazilian National School of Public Administration was set up in 1986. And the mission of this was to develop the skills of the civil servants to increase the capacity of governance in managing public policies. So now let us discuss the training of civil servants in Russia. So the Russian system of training for civil servants in the recent years, if we see, it has developed into a multi-dimensional and complex set of different programs. So the training of civil servants, it is distributed among the So at present, the system for civil servants training, it consists of the following types of educational programs. So there is a short-term training programs up to 72 hours, which are prepared according to the urgent operational necessities of governmental structures. Also, there are mid-term programs as well for civil servants qualification, which are usually around 144 hours. And also there are programs for requalification in case of job position change from one governmental body to another, or strong position change from executive to managerial level, or in case of necessity of some innovative activity. So that is about 500 hours of training. So another level, if you see type of educational program that is there for the training of civil servants in Russia is regarding masters in public administration programs. So that is also there for civil servants on top managerial positions. So that is about 1,000 hours. And also there is practical training programs as well, which include training abroad as well. That is called Stazirovki. Then there is the Russian legislation, which provided that every civil servant should undergo training programs at least once in 3 years. So the Russian legislation, it provides that every civil servant should undergo training program at least once in 3 years. And it meant that capacity of training institutions should be enough to provide such training demands. Now we shall discuss the professional training programs for civil servants which are there in Russia. So the Academy of National Economy, ANP, it is one of the higher educational institutions in Russia, and it is a state educational and scientific institution that offers programs in postgraduate and complete professional training for civil servants. And also the main activities of the Academy of National Economy are training, continuing education, and upgrading of the qualifications of the civil servants for the federal organs and the subjects of the Russian Federation. Also, another function is capacity building of the civil servants, of the local organs of self-government, and also professional development of the civil servants in the reserve for transfer to higher state positions. So, not only training the civil servants and providing continuing education and upgrading their qualifications, and not only focusing on those civil servants who are serving in the federal organs, that is in the provinces, but also a very crucial aspect of the training of civil servants in Russia, which is done by the Academy of National Economy. It includes capacity building of the civil servants who are serving in the local organs of self-government, that is in the urban local bodies and the rural local bodies. So those civil servants are also imparted training by the Academy of National Economy. And also it includes professional development of the civil servants in the reserve for transfer to higher state positions. So now let us discuss training of civil servants in India. So training of IS officers, the training of this premier civil service has historically been accorded high priority by the government. So IS officers, upon entry, they are trained for a period of 2 years at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Administrative Academy, which is in Mussoorie, where the training follows the sandwich pattern, that is, institutional training is interspersed by field training. And it is distinguished by a common foundation course where all those selected for Group A services, which are all India services and central services, they train together for the first 15 weeks before embarking on their service specific professional training. So, if we talk about the professional training for IS officers, now let us discuss the professional training for IS officers. So, the remaining part of the 2 year induction training, it is spent on professional course and a year of district training. So, the professional course is divided into two phases, which is separated by a year of district training. So, the phase one, it includes 22 weeks. It is of 22 weeks approximately. So that is called the IAS professional course. And after the completion of the foundation course, the IAS officer trainees graduate to phase one training of the professional course. So this course, it imparts rigorous training to the officer trainees of the IAS in a wide range of subjects in order to enable them to handle varied assignments that they would hold in the first 10 years of their service. On completion of the phase one of the professional course, the officer trainees, they proceed on a 1 year district training to their allocated cadres. Now phase two, which is about 6 weeks approximately. So while theoretical concepts are imparted during the foundation course and phase one, and ground level realities, they are studied during the district training. The phase two is designed to share the experiences that are gathered across the country by the officer trainees on returning to the academy. So the course content is designed to consolidate the learning and for assimilating the district experiences which are gained by the trainees in 1 year. So this prepares them for problems and situations that they will face in the initial years of their career. Now, another part of the training is the master's degree in public management. So, the academy, it awards a master's degree in public management, which is recognized by Jawaharlal Nehru University to the IAS officers training. So, another training is the induction training, which is for state civil service officers to the IAS, which is about 6 weeks. Now, the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Administrative Academy, it also conducts 6 weeks of induction training programs for officers who are promoted to the IAS from the state civil services. And out of 6 weeks, 4 weeks are classroom sessions followed by 1 week of Bharat Darshan and 1 week long foreign study tour. Also, there is mid-career training program as well for IAS officers. So the purpose of mid-career training is that as an officer goes up in the hierarchy, the nature of his or her job, it changes. So with effect from 2007, a new and more comprehensive system of mid-career training was introduced and for the IAS officers, and that covered 3 phases comprising of officers at different seniority levels. So the phase 1 and phase 2 trainings, they are held at the time of induction of the officer to the service, and phase 3, 4 and 5, they are. So if we discuss about the phase 3, in the phase 3, IAS officers with 7 to 8 years of seniority. So phase 3 program, it was introduced in 2007 by the government of India. It is the first in the series of mid-career training programs. So the prime objective of this training is to equip officers with tools, skills and knowledge to help them achieve excellence in implementation of programs and also to improve public service delivery, also to strengthen communication, interpersonal and team building skills, and also to appreciate the centrality of values in governance, and also to learn about efficient service delivery in specific sectors from experiences across states. So phase 3, it prepares the officers to meet the challenges which the officer will face in the next 6 to 8 years of service. Now after that, there is the phase 4 as well. It is for IAS officers with 15 to 16 years of seniority. So it includes 3 weeks plus 1 week foreign study tour. So the phase 4 training is for those IAS officers who make a significant transition from implementation roles to those in policy formulation. And they influence policy outcomes and also bring about qualitative improvement in the lives of the citizens of our nation. So the prime objective of the phase 4 of training is to appreciate the role of political economy and institutions in public policy and governance, and also to understand the process of public policy formulation and analysis, and also implementation and evaluation, and also to apply tools of policy analysis to better understand and solve policy problems, and also to strengthen individual leadership and negotiation skills. So after that, there is phase 5 as well, which is for IAS officers with 26 to 28 years of seniority. Now this is a 3-week phase. So phase 5 program, it is the last major training program in the series of a 3-phase mid-career training program. So the focus of this course is on strategic management in government along with public policy and regulation. So the academy inputs are also delivered on governance, political economy, economic development, public finance, foreign policy, trade, environment, and energy. So the interactive lecture sessions, they are delivered by eminent guest speakers, policymakers and practitioners who are drawn from India and from abroad as well. So the officer participants, they are required to submit a policy paper or syndicate report based on their experience. Now let us discuss the training of civil servants in China. We have so far discussed the training of civil servants in Brazil, Russia, and India, the first 3 countries of the BRICS. Now let us discuss the training of civil servants in China. So China, it puts a lot of emphasis on training and development of its civil servants, and also it puts a lot of emphasis on the methods of attracting capable human capital in order to promote its development agenda. So the training system, it was initiated in 1996 by the Provisional Regulation on Civil Servant Training. And this regulation, it set forth extensive training requirements and programs in China. In addition, the Ministry of Personnel, it also formulates a 5-year training guidelines in accordance with the party's 5-year state plans to outline the principles, goals, priorities, and enabling measures of civil servant training during a certain time period. So these guidelines, they are followed by provincial and local governments. So the Communist Party of China and the control of the Communist Party of China of the civil servant training, it is reflected in the fact that the Ministry of Personnel, it formulates its 5 years guideline following the Chinese Communist Party's organizational department's 5-year plans for cadre education and training. So the Ministry of Personnel of China, it formulates its 5-year guidelines for civil servant training on the basis of the Chinese Communist Party's organizational department's 5-year plans for cadre education and training. So that in itself reflects that how much the civil servant training in China is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. More substantively, the 2008 provisional regulations on civil servant training, it specifies that is responsible for all aspects of civil servant training. while the Ministry of Personnel is responsible for directing and coordinating civil servant training in administrative agencies. So, training under the cadre system, it mostly focused on teaching Marxist political ideology and also fostering party loyalty. So, fostering party loyalty under the amongst the civil servants, loyalty towards the Chinese Communist Party, and also on teaching Marxist political ideology to them. So this is still important in the current system as well, but equal attention is paid to the professional knowledge, skills, and abilities. So the 2006 to 2010 civil servant training guideline, it suggested 4 criteria for a good civil service workforce. These 4 criteria were political loyalty. That was the first criteria. The second criteria was professional competence. The third criteria was personal integrity. And the final and fourth criteria was citizen satisfaction. So the guideline, it emphasizes the role of Marxist theories, but also stresses that the theories, they must be linked with practical issues, and that the central task of training is to improve the civil servants' abilities in areas such as political awareness, lawful administration, public service, and also research, innovation, communication, coordination, problem solving, and finally psychological adaptation. So in all these areas, the training that is imparted to the civil servants, it wants to improve the civil servants' abilities in all these areas. So we have so far discussed the training of civil servants in Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Now we shall be discussing the training of civil servants in South Africa. So the first phase of the training of civil servants in South Africa, it's called the compulsory induction program. So in South Africa, the new civil servants at the entry level, they are required to undergo compulsory induction program, which is called CIP. And this was introduced in 2012. And this is mandatory to attend for new public servants from salary levels 1 to 16 as per the directives that are issued by the Minister for Public Service and Administration in the Public Service Regulations of 2001. So this program, which is the compulsory induction program, developmental values, zeal, knowledge, skills, and commitment to serving the ordinary citizens of South Africa. So this compulsory induction program, it challenges new public servants to live the Bathopele principles and to instill knowledge and understanding of the intrinsic values and building blocks of South Africa. So the values that are underlying the South African Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and also related legislations, and also the legislative frameworks such as the Public Service Act, the Public Finance Management Act, and the Bill of Rights. So this compulsory induction program, it seeks to enable new recruits to work professionally and also to understand the following things. Now, what are the things that this compulsory induction program, it wants the new recruits to understand? The first is that it wants them to understand the intent of South Africa's constitution and the implementation of the government's policies, legislation, and understand is the expectations and needs of the citizens of South Africa. The third is the common purpose and collective vision of the nation of South Africa. And also the fourth thing that it wants them to understand is the structure of the government of South Africa and the application of the administrative apparatus of the state of South Africa. Another most important thing that the CIP or compulsory induction program wants the new recruits to understand is the human, financial, and physical resources of South Africa. And also, it wants them to be sensitive towards diversity and inclusivity in the workplace. So these are the things for which the compulsory induction program is conducted amongst the new recruits of civil services in South Africa. Now let us discuss the scheme of the compulsory induction program. So it is mandatory that all new entrants to the public service, they attend the compulsory induction program during the first 24 months of employment. So within the first 24 months, one has to mandatorily attend the compulsory induction program. Now, successful completion of the compulsory induction program, it results in confirmation of permanent appointment in the public service and also eligibility to qualify for an annual pay progression as well. So we have discussed the third block. We have finished the third block. Now let us move on to the fourth block, which is pertaining to planning, budgeting, and audit system. So as part of this fourth block, today we will be discussing the planning process in the BRICS nations. So let us begin the ninth unit, that is pertaining to the planning process in the BRICS nations. So planning, it is a future course of action, the intention of which is to achieve a set of goals. Okay, so it basically combines thinking and organizing the activities that are primarily necessary to realize the laid down goals. Now, planning is the sine qua non. Systematic efforts and more often chaos results in ineffective planning. So, the effective execution of policies, it largely depends on how good is the planning. And precisely, planning is the course of judgment about socio-economic development of the country. Also, planning is a process of management in order to achieve a preferred goal or target. And also, planning is a device to visualize the management of the project and its techniques. And also, it is a required step to attain specific goals. So it is stated that if policymakers will plan immaculately, then they can trim down much of the needed time and endeavor of accomplishing the objective. Now let us discuss the planning process in Brazil. So Article 170 of the Constitution of Brazil, it specifies that the principle of the economic order should be the deliberation of private proposal as the main factor of economic development. That is, planning, it must therefore be on the principle of direction planning through the process of free market services. So the process of planning in the Brazilian economy, it has the following two stages. The first stage is that of the draft plan, and the second stage is that of the skeleton plan. So if we discuss the draft plan, which is the first stage of planning in Brazil, in the Brazilian economy, the first stage, that is draft plan, it refers to the, so under this stage of which is called the draft plan, the first stage, the target growth of the economy, the structural measures and macroeconomic and sectoral data, they are resolute conditionally. So the draft plan is published for economic policy in the shape of a paper of 50 to 100 pages. Now, after that, the skeleton, we go to the second stage, which is the skeleton plan. So at this stage, that is the skeleton plan, the actual planning process starts, and it is also called the programming of planning. So this responsibility, it comes under the supervision of the ministries of planning, finance, and other relevant ministries. So the SUDENE or SUDAM, which is called the Superintendency for the Development of the Amazonia. The RADAM and the INCRA, they are also involved in planning process in Brazil. And it is the responsibility of these institutions to look after the projects in the process of implementation. So, if we discuss the Goulart Plan, which initiated the global planning program, which was particularly based upon 3-year plan for economic and social development in Brazil. This was a very important plan, that is the Goulart Plan. So it initiated the global planning program, and this global planning program, it was particularly based upon 3-year plan for economic and social development in Brazil. What were the objectives of this Goulart Plan? Let us discuss. The first objective was the 1961 with an average GDP growth rate of annually 6% and the matching per capita growth rate of annually 3.10% for the period from 1963 to 1965. The second objective of this global planning program was an improvement, the decrease of the inflationary expansion to an inflation rate of 11% in 1965. So that was the second objective of the global planning program, that was an improvement, decrease of the inflationary expansion to an inflation rate of 11% in 1965. The third objective was alteration of the regionally as well as personally uneven allocation of incomes. So to end this uneven allocation of incomes and also to attain income equality, this Goulart Plan was introduced. It is a very significant measure in the history of planning process in Brazil. Another objective of this Goulart Plan was understanding of essential reforms, that is, of the management of banks, finance, and agriculture. The final objective of this Goulart Plan was lessening of foreign debts, which augmented powerfully because of the permanent balance of payments shortfall. So there was a balance of payments crisis that was going on in Brazil, and to tackle that, this Goulart Plan was brought in. So there is another institution in Brazil which plays a very important role in the planning process in Brazil. That is called the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Management, or the MOPBM. So the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Management, it is an innermost organ of the Federal Republic in Brazil. The objective of this ministry is to execute long-term and short-term plan which are enshrined in the policies of the federal government in Brazil. So the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Management is in the planning process to promote state capacities and to augment sustainable development in the execution of public policies. So the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Management, or MOPBM, it ensures the following things. What are the things? Let us discuss. The first is, it ensures increase in the institutional capacity of public administration. It also ensures enhanced organization and implementation of the state plans. Apart from that, it also ensures that the supply of public service of the distinction to the citizens, they are increased or they are augmented. That also is one of the duties of the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Management in Brazil to ensure. So it also ensures single-minded skills and the democratization of labor relations in Brazil. And so the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Management, it also ensures that the government's aptitude to execute public policies is augmented, is enhanced or increased or improved. So this was the Ministry of Planning, Budget and Management in Brazil. Now let us discuss national development planning in Brazil. So national development planning, it has emerged as an important mechanism of economic development in Brazil. So since the adoption of the new constitution of Brazil in 1988, The national development planning in Brazil, it emerged as a multi-year development planning system engaging directly towards law of budget directives and public expenditure management. Its major role is to enhance the productive guidelines for the distribution of public resources to augment efficiency and all-round development in Brazil. So we have discussed the planning process in Brazil. Now let us discuss the planning process in Russia. So planning is treated as economic actions of the state in Russia, and its economic establishment is created on the guidelines of the public. So the development of planning institutions in Russia can be divided into three stages. First is before the establishment of nation states, which is called non-differential planning. All categories of plans were shaped on the basis of ethnicity and background. The second stage is opening of formal planning dealings and conception of planning establishment. The third stage is implementation of planning authorities and observance to the recognized procedures. The fourth stage, so now let us discuss the establishment of national planning in Russia. The framework for the establishment of national planning system was developed in Russia to promote the expansion of planning possibility and perspective of shared agreement plans for personage industries in the economy. The Russian Federation, it was set up and the Federation established the Constitution of State Commission on Electrification of the country in the year 1920 with a prime responsibility to improve a program of national economic recovery. So the country was recovering from the implications of its participation in the First World War, which was very disastrous, which also led to the overthrow of the monarchy of the Tsar and the establishment of the communism, and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic came into being, USSR. So the State Commission on Electrification of the country, it was set up in 1920 with the prime responsibility to improve a program of national economic recovery and technical re-equipment as well as enhancement of the reconstruction program of the economy of Russia. So the top-bottom directive system of economic management that started to develop during this phase, and that further solidified in the subsequent years under Joseph Stalin. So in Russia, we also see the establishment of operational planning. So operational planning is also a process of planning in Russian economy. The operational planning, it may be divided into two subunits of planning. What are the components of operational planning in Russia? The first component is feasibility planning, and the second component is calendar planning. These are the two components of operational planning in Russia: feasibility planning and calendar planning. Also, there is operation of strategic planning as well in Russia. So the process of strategic planning is used at all levels of management in Russia, at the state level, at the regional level, and at the enterprise level. So comprehensive strategic development plan in Russia is more distinctive. It is responsible for the improvement and monitoring aspects of implementation of the long-term and socio-economic improvement of the Russian Federation. So we have discussed the planning process in Brazil and Russia. Now let us discuss the planning process in India. So after 17th August 2014, the Planning Commission of India, it was dissolved to pave the way for the Niti Aayog, or the National Institution for Transforming India, which came up to replace the command economic structure that was adopted by India. So the Planning Commission's top-down model of development was no longer suited to to the changing economic conditions of the country, especially after the 1991 liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms that took place in India, as per which India opened its market to the world. On the other hand, the Niti Aayog's consultative approach, it sounded appropriate as various state governments and other relevant think tanks at the grassroots levels, they provided the inputs for the formulation of plans. However, the strategy of economic planning in India before or after the Niti Aayog, it remained important as it described the long-term plans of India and also stressed upon the efficient utilization of resources. Thus, the basic objective of Indian planning has been acceleration of economic growth to raise living standards of the citizens. Now let us discuss the process of planning in India. So in India, the following stages of planning are followed in the execution and implementation of plans for socio-economic development of the country. The first is perspective planning. The second is formulation of guidelines. The third is preparation of the approach paper. The fourth is publication of the draft plan. The fifth is finalization of the plan. The sixth is the phase of implementation of the plan. And finally, the last stage is the exercise of evaluation. So if we talk about perspective planning, the chief role of the perspective planning division is to evaluate and estimate about the medium-term and long-term growth plan in India. So this perspective planning, it has multiple functions in the process of planning. So the perspective planning has different economic modeling unit as well. This perspective planning division, it has a different economic modeling unit as well in providing sectoral growth of the economy. So the perspective planning stands for 5 to 20 years plan development. So this is a tentative and general goals for the long-term development of the national planning process. The perspective planning, it also covers macro level economic modeling as well. And also it also covers fiscal issues, external sector on import and export, as well as consumption and levels of living. All these are part of the perspective planning. Moving on, the second stage is the formulation of guidelines. So the goal of plan is given guiding principle by a numeral of working groups which are formed for each imperative sector. These groups, they encompass professionals, economists and government officials in the central ministries as well as the who are employed in the Niti Aayog. So these people, they prepare targets for their individual sectors, keeping their requirements and positions in view. The third is the preparation of the approach paper. The preparation of the approach paper, it is based upon the process of national planning in India. Thus, it is the responsibility to prepare major objectives, targets, issues, and challenges. Now, let us discuss the exercise of evaluation in India. So, as part of it, there is monthly evaluation and assessment of the plan that becomes very necessary. And also certain readjustments, they also may have to be executed in the plan in the light of the evaluations. The plans are executed on the basis of above pattern and following institutional mechanisms were spearheaded in the execution and implementation of the planning process till 2014. The first was the Planning Commission that was there, which is no longer there. The second was the National Development Council. Third was the state planning departments and boards, and the fourth was the district planning agencies. So we have discussed the planning process in India. Now let us move on to discuss the planning process in China. So China, it pursues plan development through the 5-year plan. So China's 5 years plan is not actually a single coherent plan, nor is it even fully contained within a discrete 5-year period. Rather than a static policy blueprint, the 5-year plan it is better thought of as an evolutionary planning and policy making process. So this planning system is grouped into 3 steps and 3 groupings in China. On the basis of administrative groups, the following components are divided into a number of steps. These are mainly on, the first is the national plans, the second is the provincial plans, and the third is the local plans, which is for city and for the countryside, that is villages. So on the basis of objective and purpose, the following components of groupings are also highlighted. These are mainly on the general plans, the special plans, and the regional plans. Now let us discuss the process of regional planning in China. So the regional plans, they have also a major, have also a drafting team official. The major regional planning procedure includes investigation and data compilation, target setting based on widespread analysis and projections, segment detailed studies. It also includes plan drafting with graph and tables. The regional planning procedure, it also includes appraisal and evaluation by officials and experts, statement and endorsement by the higher authorities in China, and also accomplishment and response. All these things, that is investigation and data compilation, target setting based on widespread analysis and projections, segment detailed studies, plan drafting with graph and tables, appraisal and evaluation by officials and experts, statement and endorsement by higher authorities, and accomplishment and response. All these are part of the regional planning procedure in China. So all these regional plans, they have also a drafting team officials as well. Now let us discuss the process of general plans in China. So the governments at the national, provincial, and local levels, they are very much integrative in arranging the formulation of general plans in China. The Development and Reform Commission in China, they are also accountable in drafting policy procedure at the same level. And under the guidance of the State Council, the NDRC, or the National Development and Reform Commission, that works on a plan draft along with other ministries and departments. As part of that, there is first the pre-analysis of the plan. So the pre-analysis, it begins 2 years prior to the commencement of the new plan. This includes the planning process. It includes examining the major issues which are pertinent to economic and social growth, enterprising probability assessment of the state-funded major capital speculation as well as infrastructure projects, and the course can take different forms such as domestic investigation, external contracting, public hearing, dialogue, as well as calling for proposition as well. After that, after the pre-analysis, the plan outlines are prepared as part of the process of drafting. So as per the notice that is issued to the National Development Reforms Commission on plan drafting, concerned ministries and departments, they put forward plan submission on their own conditions. So the National Development and Reforms Commission, it works out initial area specific plan outlines which are based on this proposition, and then a general draft structure after compromise, synchronization, and overall harmonizing is prepared. So major plan objective of economic and social growth will be scheduled in the agenda of plan. After this process, there is the stage of evaluation, approval, and amendment of the plan in China. So the finished plan outlines is subject to assessment and judgment of the officials at diverse levels, from ministries to the State Council and to the Party Central Committee. So the ultimate explanation will be reported to the National Congress for endorsement after two rounds of considerable appraisal and amendment. The plan it becomes a lawfully binding text once accepted by the National Congress, the country's uppermost authority. After this, there is the publication and process of implementation. So once the 5-year plan is accepted by the National Congress in China, the State Council it takes the accountability to systematize the plan completion by distributing plan responsibilities to the governments and departments at different levels. So a sound organization is necessary for the accomplishment of plan execution, which comprise step ladders such as task share, social draft, harmonization, and information supervision. All these things are there. After this, there is the next stage of monitoring, management, appraisal, and assessment of the plan. So these mentioned provisions and processes, they are developed to examine the performance of the plan implementation. So the assessment it aims not only all-purpose presentation of the national economy, but also the precise presentation of the percentage sectors or the departments or areas. Quantitative components they are also employed, and supervision is also worked out on behalf of the People's Congress. Now let us discuss the planning process in South Africa. So the process of planning in system in South Africa it includes the following. The first is the national development plans. The second is the sector plans. The third is the municipal integrated development plans or the MIDP. The fourth is the departmental strategic plans. And the fifth is the provincial planning, or which is also called spatial planning as well. So planning is a continuous process in South Africa, which involves decisions and choices that are made by the government to use alternative ways to use available resources. The theoretical foundation of planning in South Africa is largely based on the British system of planning, as South Africa remained under British regime for a long time. The national planning is the responsibility of the Office of the Presidency of South Africa, and it encompasses strategies and policies for the country as a whole. So South Africa, it has commenced the institutionalization of national planning in the government, a process that will result in the creation of functional and integrated national planning system in the government. So after 1994, the South African government it promoted the process of spatial planning. The spatial planning it refers to the methods that are used by the public sector to influence the distribution of people and activities in spaces of various scales. The first part of spatial planning legislation that was brought in after 1994 was the Development Facilitation Act of 1995 in South Africa to take forward the RDP goal of flouting down apartheid geography. So the NDP it made the case for by the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act. So this act it explains the necessities for municipal spatial development frameworks, and also it initiates spatial frameworks at national and provincial levels. So data and planning are also to analyze important data to locate emerging trends. Now let us discuss the institutional framework and planning process in Africa. In South Africa, the process of planning in South Africa it is being initiated through the following institutional procedures. The first is the presidency, which is one of the institutional frameworks of planning process in South Africa, and it has the basic duties for the development of strategic planning in South Africa, and it is very specific to overall planning coordination. The second is the National Planning Commission, which is set up to analyze long-term development trends and giving guidance on long-term planning issues and implementation of the National Development Plan. Third is the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, which is also an implementing agency in the planning process in South Africa. And it has responsibility with National Treasury to monitor and evaluate execution of policies for all-round development. And it is also with the Secretariat subject to the National Planning Commission. Another is the Office of the Premiers, which is also collectively responsible for the execution of provincial plans and coordination of policies for provincial plans. So the National Treasury is also an important strategic planning process, and it provides adequate guidance to Department of Monitoring and Evaluation. The Department of Cooperative Government is also setting agenda in providing public services and support to the preparation of municipal integrated development plans. So we are over with this class today. Thank you so much. Namaste.